Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. I am your host, Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium, Medical Intuitive, and Mentor. I believe we are entering into a new psychic structure of our reality that embodies deeper trust, self-love, and fearless integrity. Our New World energy needs us all to make space for it so we can support consciously conceiving parents, true intuitive pregnancies, and trusting the nature of birthing babies upon our lands with co-creation of heart. I thank you personally for tuning into all things spiritual and earth grounding, conversations that support each other and teach us to be open, free, and thrive within autonomous living and with the spark of wisdom. This is Spirit Baby Radio. Welcome to episode 175, September 29th, 2023, Healing and Replenishing Your Womb, Creating with Nature for Fertility Wellness. How do you use nature to support fertility? What ways can the womb be replenished? How can women stay positive with a challenging conception? I have a special guest here, and we were just talking so much before, and I know I always share, like, how do I meet people? How do I connect? She had a magical email, and it came through, and we just had synergy. That's how that works sometimes. And my special guest is Susana. Say your last name.
Susana Puelles.
Thank you. She's a holistic hormone and fertility specialist who's been helping women heal their wombs and get pregnant for over a decade. As a functional and Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist, she helps women reverse decades of damage and replenish reserves to fix their cycle, live pain and medication free while boosting their success at a safe and natural pregnancy. Boosting their success at a safe and natural pregnancy. She works with women all over the world to achieve optimal levels of healing in her Womb in Bloom program and is the founder of Yoni Sync, an herbal elixir product line that helps harmonize cycles and enhance womb and reproductive health. Hi, Suzanne. Welcome, welcome. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
So awesome to have you here. And sorry, I'm reading your bio and I'm just like botching it here, and I'm just so excited to like talk to you. And so there's so much I want to jump into, and maybe a little bit more about like your connection to fertility support. Like, how did that become? Like, what is, yeah,
How did that manifest,
yeah.
right? Well, I've been practicing for almost 15 years in Chinese medicine and acupuncture. And from the beginning, I knew I was always going to work in women's health because I've actually been in healthcare for over 25 years because as a teenager, I actually worked for a Western OBGYN in a clinical setting. And when I realized I had to do something different eventually, I said, okay, well, I'm going to go and be an OBGYN because that's what I know. And I'm pretty good at this back end stuff. And it's really great. And it's really exciting for me. So I went in that direction. And eventually, I think I just got really burned out. And on that trajectory, I met an acupuncturist. And I had been in healthcare and I didn't know that there were different levels of medicine or different, it was a new paradigm for me. So I met this woman, she was an acupuncturist, had some treatments. I was blown away by the difference, even just in the intake. We were doing this in the doctor's clinic. We were doing other things. And through my own healing that way, I decided to ask her if I could follow her around. I did. And so I did clinical work with her. And each paradigm of medicine is completely different, just to the patients, to what their expectations were, how they came in. And I loved it. It just facilitated something inside of me that I didn't have to push and push and push in the direction that I thought I should go. And this just gave me some ease. I knew I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to help women. But this was a completely different way to do it. And I decided to switch my studies and then go into Chinese medical school. So then I graduated there and opened my clinic, and I knew it was going to be for women's health. And off the bat, it was fibroid, cysts, endometriosis, all of these things that I would see from a Western angle. And now I get to treat them completely differently with herbs and acupuncture and nutrition and all of these things that I had learned, that weren't birth control, that weren't masking the problem. And so I was really excited to see very different aspects from Western medicine, what those remedies were and what now we could do in terms of prevention and moving forward and actually helping women not only heal their wombs, but to heal their entire bodies on multiple levels. And then so that was my practice at the beginning. And then I wanted to have children. So I had trouble having children. And then eventually I conceived. And then at 28 weeks, I developed cholestasis, which was completely traumatic for me, because what happens is the liver and the gallbladder decreased functioning, and basically all the toxins get recycled
Mm.
into my body. They're not detoxed, right? Because my liver and gallbladder are not functioning appropriately. So they're not really leaving my system so much, to the point that eventually it builds up and it can pass through the placenta and cause a stillbirth.
Mm.
So I was induced at 37 weeks. Everything turned out wonderful. My kid's fine until the second pregnancy happened, and it happened again. And then at that point, everything was fine in terms of my pregnancies and my deliveries. But then I just thought, what happened here? I'm in an industry where I'm helping women conceive. I'm helping I'm helping people heal themselves, but I felt like things weren't working on that level for me. And then the more I asked my doctors, my OBGYNs, what happened? How did this happen to me? It's genetic. And for me, that wasn't acceptable, because then on top of genetic, they say, by the way, Peruvians and Scandinavians have a higher risk of developing cholestasis. And I'm Peruvian, I'm 60% indigenous. They're like, oh, well, see, you have a bad liver to start with.
Oh,
And so I thought, okay, great. That wasn't acceptable for me. So I just kept searching and searching. And, the right person comes in your life when you need direction. My friend's husband at the time was starting to train other colleagues in functional medicine. And I looked into that, and I started doing my own testing, and the toxicity levels from heavy metals to chemicals in our environment were through the roof in my system. And so it gave me some answers, and then I moved on from there. And then I met other people that were like, it's not genetic, it's environmental. So through that learning, I just delved into the research, and it's out there, it's really there. And I started creating different plans for my clients. And then that's when I really just wanted to go out there and help women prepare their bodies. Even if you don't think, you're 25 or 30 or 32, you're not thinking about having children. It's it's never it's never too early to
mm.
clean things up and heal, because it's not just about a baby, it's about your system, the tissues. What's going on? What blockages are you having? Are they emotional? Are they, do we have to cut some cords here? Maybe that's why you don't want children. Or are they more physical? How are they manifesting? And clinically, they do manifest some way or another. And so that's how, from women's health, I really just delved into fertility, and it excites me every time I get a patient that's been told, you can't have children, you waited too long, your eggs are old, or, um, it's just not happening, and they get pregnant. And I just, if I could be a little part of that, it just warms my heart. And I just feel like with fertility, we're not just dealing with somebody that just can't have a baby. We're dealing with macrocosm energies and macrocosm things, like symptoms of a larger complex nature that we are all a part of. And infertility involves all of us. We all contribute in some way. It's just manifesting as somebody can't have a baby, but we're all playing into it in the way we consume, the way we eat, the way we, all of it. So the more I can play into helping people, we're helping people on a larger level, energetically, environmentally. So I've just become a liver expert and kind of like an environmentalist at the same time, because I feel like it's not just about babies, it's about humans and having happy people around us and having happy families. And we just need more positivity, right?
I love that. I love how your foundation began, right? It's like you're in this office, you're young, and you're like trying to figure out who you are and what's happening. And then, I know like how good it is, I was talking about this with someone the other day where, getting, the earthy stuff, the science and looking at things and seeing, and to me, I look at science and earth as more of this belief system and like what we're kind of taught doesn't make it true. Some things yes, some things no, but there's something about that people like, and then you bring it in. I know for me, I went into psychology. A lot of the things I was like, what is this psychology thing about? And what does that mean? And then it's like, and then you kind of go, okay, I'm not, we're gonna take little parts of that, but I don't know about that. Like there's so much limitation sometimes. And then I know a lot of what we talk about, it's like then you're in creation with yourself and looking and your own story, of course. And I actually just had somebody was emailing me about that issue or whatever. What did you call it? Cleo.
Homeostasis.
Yeah, and I didn't, they were looking into light therapy for it, and I said, I don't really know anything about it. It's interesting you just said that. So I'm like, oh.
Mhm.
Um, and then that repeated pattern, or of course, like you talk about environmental stuff, of course that's big. And I always feel like from my perspective is a little different, but when we have environmental toxicities, I feel like they're weaknesses in our energy field. And because it's very confusing for people, it's kind of like one person can have, a lot of mercury or aluminum, and other people can be exposed to it and be completely fine. And then that
Absolutely.
confuses us, right? It's like, wait, but I know what's very true and real is that there are gestational toxicities. And I often joke and feel bad about my older son. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what I know now, like there's so much I had to like, detox. And I think that's why I had children later, because I was in toxicity with an autoimmune disorder for a very long time. And
Right.
to get to a balance, like if I tried to conceive in the middle of it, I probably wouldn't be able to. But I also intuitively felt like I needed to like take care of my body. And this is why I feel like women, they get so much negativity when they're 35 and older conceiving. And I'd love to hear more about that. It's like all of a sudden you got to have the high risk doctor. This is like, I hear this with women. I'm going, wow, like, why is, 35 and up? I was always told by the midwives, you're only a high risk if you actually have a risk.
That's beautifully said. I love that. And yeah, 35 in Western medicine has become this marker of doom, right? When it comes to your fertility. And when I'm on the phone with patients, well, I'm 36, time's running out, and it's almost like a programming script that I'm hearing.
Mm,
The words are completely the same. My doc, I'm 35, I'm running out of time. They could be in New York, one can be in California, and they're still saying the same line. So it's a narrative that we have been conditioned to believe. There is truth biologically that things start to slow down, but and then there's the cycles of life, right? But it's not all or nothing after 35. If you're taking care of yourself, if you're reducing your exposures, if you're nourishing yourself, if you have connection to your cycles, most of the women that are like, I'm running out of time, I'm 37 and clock's ticking, but they've been told that by their grandma, by mom,
mhm.
by the media, by their fertility specialist. And and what I see is you're disconnected from your cycle. You don't even know when your last period was. Did grandma teach you, how to take care of yourself, what herbs to take? when you were 12. We don't have that in our culture, but we do have this narrative of 35, oh, it goes downhill. And that's simply not true. How I see it, especially my 40-year-old trying to get pregnant, is I don't see you as a 40-year-old trying to get pregnant in terms of your biology or what your eggs are doing or if they're declining. I see it as like, okay, you're 40, so you've just been exposed longer than my 30.
Mm,
Okay, you've just been out of sync a little bit longer than my 30-year-olds. We're all exposed to the same chemicals, right? Like you mentioned with your mercury levels and things like that. Mine were high. My arsenic levels were really, really high.
wow.
You know, it can disrupt the thyroid. For me, mine were high. It should have disrupted the thyroid. It didn't show up like that. It showed up in the
Mm,
liver. And for
mm-hmm.
you, it could be different. So these are exposure issues. And we're not grounded. We're all repeating, and I don't say this negatively. It's just what you hear in clinic. It's really like I'm listening to the news, and
Mm,
what I hear is narratives.
mm-hmm.
Narratives in this story of like, I waited too long, and it's like, no, you didn't. You had to do what you had to do. Your baby wasn't ready to come in. Let's look at it that way.
Yeah.
It's not about getting married, or it's not about having enough money to have a baby.
Mm,
Baby wasn't ready to get married. Maybe this isn't about you. And so I
mm,
try to look at it this way, a little bit, a lot of science, because that's my grounding foundation. But where are the connections here? Because there's so many levels. There's the science, there's the toxins, there's the physical stuff that's happening in the body that you react to. Then there's the stories that we create, not because you created them, but because we heard them somewhere, you know, from 0 to 7 years old. You're subconscious, you're a sponge. It's not you, it's
mm,
everybody else's stuff. What you've learned from mom, what you learned from dad, grandma, your caretaker who took care of you, what you learned in preschool, all of this becomes part of your fertility journey in the end, or what makes you human, or what gives you these imbalances that we eventually see in the womb, in the heart, and your thyroid. It all really culminates into a huge package here.
This is why I love somatic psychology, because it's true, the belief systems and the mind. And I have a way with when I'm looking at the clients and I'm going, okay, you're just in your head the whole time, so what are you going to do to get out of it? I'm not just leaving them high and dry, but also going, okay, but that's a very anxious, fear-provoked place. And like you said, all these other things come in. And I really feel like, coming back to the body, being embodied, listening to the body is always, of course the biggest challenge. But I feel like as we spoke about earlier, I feel like now is the time to do that. Like this is no joke to be in this world at this time as a conscious being and bringing your new earth child forward. Like what are you doing? Are you pushing into the fears, healing the traumas, really healing them? And when I say healing the traumas, I get it. We all have so much trauma, and that's fine. But here's the thing, when trauma is activated, so if there's an active energy and it creates an emotional response in your body, it still needs your love and attention, really. And so some people feel like, well, I thought I got over that. Or, just because you did in your mind, your mind doesn't
Right.
mean your body isn't pulsating with like, oh, we're really wounded right now. We need just a little bit of tenderness and love in a different way than before. And even I want to just bring in, and I don't know if you've seen this even in your work. I see this a lot, and I know it's because of my own foundation, where how the conceiving woman or man has they've been birth traumatized, whether they were suctioned or embryonic or and they don't even realize they're walking around with this story inside them that literally has a part to do with their ability to then receive life and conceive. And
Mm.
I've been seeing that a lot more over the years, and just having the conversation is healing. Like, hey, you know, yeah, how were you born? Like, what does that look like? And I only go there if I see, like, I'm shown foundation. I've seen people in embryonic states, and they confirm that these things were true. when they were in the womb or in between, or what they wanted to come, or if they were sick, or were they going to die, like all these things. And I like to bring them to the surface, to the conscious, like let your mind hear it, let your body just be with it, because you, just like all of us, we were at our own births, right? We were at our own births. And so that piece, I feel like is very valuable and important for embodiment and healing. And of course, we can say birth psychology really is the foundation to hold that study and awareness around, the conceptions of life and pregnancy and just healing, even birthing and healing through that awareness.
Absolutely. You're so right on. That brings another level too, is our own births. All of this, we have to acknowledge that there is transgenerational traumas and happiness and chemicals and everything. All of these things are passed down to our babies, ourselves, from womb to womb. It's not just the genetics, what's going to make me a boy or a girl, brown hair, blue eyes, and healthy,
Mhm.
right? It's not just making a baby chemically, scientifically. That's the very clinical thing that we get in, a lot of women get into their heads and really feel like they can control, where there has to be a part of fertility and conception as well, and birthing, that we're taught that there's transgenerational traumas and other things that really affect the process of, is your womb receptive? Maybe not. Maybe there was trauma in your mother's birth when you
Mm,
came out, and your cells, your uterine cells literally hold that tension and trauma and
mhm,
close off circulation physically, you know, limiting your receptivity to fertility. This isn't very sciency to think about, well, did my mother's birth trauma affect me? Because I have this deep
mm,
inherent fear of giving birth. So I never want to have children subconsciously. But you do want to have children physically or mentally, because that's the right thing to do, because you're over 35, right? You have to get this going. But your body is living a completely different
mm,
physical experience, and it's not letting you get what you want until you tap into that cellular memory and work your way through that trauma, or what's holding your muscles tight. And I think that there's so much to be said about working at this deeper level. And so in my programs, yeah, we work on the nutrition, the physical stuff,
mm,
right? The everyday lifestyle stuff and healing the womb, but from a body system point. But I'm a big believer in timelines. In my medical timelines, I ask, what did your parents do? How was your birth? How was your mother's birth? And all of these, because for me, it's such a big part of fertility and birthing and pregnancy, as to these generational wounds and what we need to heal and moving forward. And I think when my patients are really open to it, their journey just becomes so different, and they become
mm.
just such different mothers. And like I said, we're creating different families here, and it just excites me when I get those patients that are so open to so open to it, getting out of the heads of what more should I be doing? What should I be taking, or should I do more IVF? Into, let's look at it this differently. Let's look at what your womb needs. Let's look at
Mm,
what your heart needs, because
mm.
although those are organs, they do manifest energetically, and that's the beauty of Chinese medicine. From what I did, in terms of gynecology beforehand, there was none of that. There was a lot of trauma and
Mm,
fear and blockage and repression, medication to repress
mm.
symptoms. But Chinese medicine is completely different. We're going to open that up and see what opens up for you. And that's when the magic happens with fertility and conscious conceptions. And babies turn out completely different, because
Mm.
you become a different person, not only because you're a mom now, but because you're open to the energetic flow. Energy just opened up differently for you.
I love everything that you're saying. There's so many good parts there. It's so beautiful because Yeah, looking at, like I think we say the same thing. It's like, okay, food and diet, sure, exercise, good, 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 good for you, awesome. But that emotional, energetic piece is so powerful. And I know, and the more in my work, the more that I'm really sitting and expanding, I would say that most people are walking around with layers of emotional, just unresolved, repressed. And, even something you said, it made me think, people will come and say, hey, I have endometriosis or I have fibroids. And they're like, but I'm not eating the chocolate. I should be okay, whatever it is. And I'm like, yeah, because it's not physical.
Yeah.
There's it's physical because it's physiologically manifested through, like you were saying, the organs. I do see them as vibrational parts of us that have their own impulse of connection, electromagnetic energy. But then it's like there's so much more, and it is hard for the mind at times, of course, to like really understand. And this is why it's like, well, what does your body say? It's like, right, it's like going into the body, listening, and it doesn't mean we have to have every single answer to like endometriosis and fibroids. And maybe people can get it, doctors and clinicians, but I also feel like I see them as stories. I can actually see the timeline of, oh, look, they were 12 years old and this happened, and that just created a shift in their body in that timeline. But I'm going to be honest, people don't really want to know that, is what I've discovered. And I'm like, why? Because it's buried, suppressed, it's in there. So let's just look at this physical thing. Let's do some surgery. Let's do some chemicals. Oh, and maybe it helped, maybe it didn't. Oh, we left more trauma. And it's like, or, and again, I'm saying that with love because I know we're doing the best we can to kind of understand ourselves. But as I said earlier, we need to come back to really being in embodied space. And, you know, and I want to say it's easier for others than others, but it's not. I feel like we go into embodiment practice, we listen to our system and really connect. And I know I feel like, a lot of things you were saying, I remember as a young woman going to the gynecologist and being so traumatized, actually, so traumatized. And I'm like poking and prodding and scraping but no consent to like my energy, and my history. Like I was born traumatically. There's a sensitivity around that. I'm literally, my first medical experience in life and birth was traumatic. And then that was really intense. And then having my mother, which I've shared openly, was mentally ill. And so now I'm traumatized with a mentally ill mother with her unresolved trauma. And then like, here, doctor, take the baby. And it's like, what is happening? And so that's, created the journey of my own wellness and multiple levels of sickness, of course, to try to come back to clearing the energy of my body, my existence. And and of course highly medically skeptical. And I was just literally having this conversation the other day. I had some medical things come up like from a science perspective, and I go, oh, there's an issue here and I've never experienced this before. And my first mind was, for me, was, I don't run to the doctor. And I go, but I could see why people would do that. And I was like, maybe that. But then I went inward more and I went, this isn't medical, even though they could see it in that way. This to me felt like, what emotion do I need to sit with right now? So I call up my somatic therapist, and it feels like a miracle. Literally went from major issues to the next day, nothing, practically nothing. And then I did acupuncture too, which was really amazing. She's like, you do acupuncture. Okay. And then I'm literally listening to my body shift and change in my organs because I have that capacity now. I feel safer. I'm listening and I'm not expecting it mentally. I'm literally just sitting in this guidance with this beautiful, loving force of this woman. And that's a big part of it too. Having that loving force of energy with you allowed me to then literally, I felt like relax my organs in my body. Like they just went whoosh, like they just moved. And
Hmm.
then suddenly whatever this issue was had permission to like whatever it was. And it was like, it really just fascinates me because I think we're all examples of when we go through things, whether it's pain, and there's pain in my situation and whatever. But then it's like, what is the step to move into healing with it? It's not about, sometimes it's not about doing much of a lot of stuff, but the fear is there, right? And then it's like moving deep into embodiment.
Right. You're right. You're absolutely right when you said people don't want to hear about this. They just want to know what to do so they can have a baby. It's clear and dry. That's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that because we want results too, right? And you're right. People they're like, I don't want therapy, because some of this sounds like we could go to therapy, but it's not. When all else has failed, what are we holding on to? What story? Why? What I always want to tap into,
Mm,
what's the unfulfilled desire? In Chinese medical school, I had a teacher that said that one time, and he's like, I've been practicing for 40 years, and I've concluded that why people come to me, whatever it is, it's some level of unfulfilled desires.
mm,
And that's so profound to me because it's not judgmental, you know. You may come in to see him for acupuncture for a headache because you're really stressed out that you didn't get the job. That's an unfulfilled desire. It doesn't have to be deeper
mm,
than that. And so it's clinically true. And when I want to go deep with some people of just like, let's sit into this, just sit down and let's feel, just guide all your energy and your attention to your womb right now. What do you feel? It's tight. And I'm like, that's a muscle, that's your womb.
mm,
Oh, it's not receptive. And, it doesn't have to be out there, psychologically or energetically, for people just to sit there for 5 minutes, just give them
mm,
a little taste
mhm,
of, it's not just about, the watermelon juice in the morning. It's just sit there for 5 minutes of your day and tell the uterus safety, safety,
mm,
safety, safety. And, you know, we're not giving them therapy, but we're giving them tools to just sit in their body so that they can figure it
mm,
out. Some people will surprise you and they'll just say, I had a dream about this and
mm,
I've never had this stuff. And, it's about softening up the journey for some people. And, they are coming from a place of predominant Western medicine, which there is a place for. I mean, Western medicine saved my life and my children, right? So there is a place for it. But clinically, we have been lacking. We've been lacking in softening and preventing. And so most women and couples that come to me, they're 20 years behind what we should have been
mm,
healing when they were 12, right? In Asia, this medicine is so integrated into the
mhm,
culture. It is real prevention. It's real wellness. In America, holistic medicine, acupuncture, we brand it as it's preventative medicine, but it's not. It's not. People are coming to me after rounds of IVF, after the fibroids, after the myomectomies. And then I'm being reactive with my medicine, just like Western medicine, because they can't help anymore. And so there is a level of prevention that we do have to kind of train the next generation.
mm.
At this point, everybody should have an acupuncturist. I
They
believe
should. Didn't we just say that? Yeah.
it's right.
Yeah.
Everybody. I'm
There's
just
no reason
surprised.
not to. I would think that even in this time now, I know that like if people are worried about insurance or most of them cover like almost 100% or most acupuncturists, they have sliding scales. And I know people are like, what is the sliding scale? It means there could be space to have a cheaper rate temporarily or, overall. And so I feel I actually do. I have my acupuncturist in my back pocket. And she saves me all the time. Like just recently, I was like, okay, yeah, like let's do this. And I like what you're saying. It's true. In another culture, it's very different. But even you made me think about in Europe, my friends over there, homeopathy, you can't just buy it at the supermarket. You have to go through a practitioner or a doctor because, it is very, deepening, very serious medicine. And it's just interesting how here, yeah, I mean, it can only speak from the culture I grew up in and what I've seen. And I was a product of medical trauma, like many people. And that, that does make you see things very differently as you get evolve and you go, no, I'm not consenting to any of these experiments or things.
Right.
And then you find your way. And it was, for me, the Eastern was where I went when I got really sick. And it was what helped me then realize there was so much to unwind. As you said, it's like, oh, it's happened at 12, and then you're like there. And I even just giving love to those that are in the conception space and you're really struggling. Like it just, you're not just one day, it's just not going to work. Like this is years of energy, of toxicities probably. And it's not about judging you and fearing you. It's just like, okay, I know that even what we're talking about, it's like we both believe in you, like to conceive. You feel your child, you know they're there. And even you may not have the answers in that moment, but it doesn't mean they won't come. And that's the beauty, I think, of the feminine is the creative force and being in that love space of just unwinding to make, to just see what serves you next. It's like what then comes.
Absolutely. And the feminine is if we really need to integrate that into our medical system, right? And so in Chinese medicine, we have these concepts that when I talk to Western doctors, they're like, what the heck is that? That's that. So, but it just really paints a beautiful picture on how things can manifest in the body that sometimes with Western medicine, there aren't answers. One of the most frustrating diagnosis that I hear from patients is, well, I have unexplained infertility.
Mm,
I love that one because for me, there's nothing unexplained. There's always some level of explanation, and I try to help people understand that. Listen, okay, you went the Western route and all the tests are normal. That's great. That means you don't have a disease. We can still get in front of this before things show up on the labs. That's what Western medicine is for. Those harsh things that we don't want to show up on the labs. Okay, so then we have to just the femininity of Chinese medicine comes into play at that point and softening all of that and just your organs vibrate at an energetic pace and they all have a personality. And when you're trying to integrate somebody that's come from this masculine archetype medicine that didn't work, and now you're trying to get them into acupuncture or take some gentle herbs, right? It takes some time for them to be open and receptive, and that's all part of the journey. And I think that the more we put that out there, the more people are just going to be more receptive to it, and things will change faster because things are accelerating the more there's a level of awareness. And the beauty of Chinese medicine really, finding the right practitioner for you to kind of ease your way into it can really change things up for a lot of people.
I absolutely agree. And those that are tuning in, I'm going to say it. Kelly's going to say it. You got to have an acupuncture.
Yeah.
Whether you're on fertility or pregnancy or even postpartum healing after motherhood, I found like it saved me, especially postpartum pregnancy. I had acupuncture during pregnancy because that lower back, oh my goodness, all that tension, all that baby. And then postpartum was a savior, nursing mom, just feeling overwhelmed and for me, very dysregulated, trying to come back into regulation and be present. And so it's almost like, especially if you're on a fertility journey with the time we're in, I feel like there's certain issues that are coming up. I see more collectively around male and female, sperm and egg and things. And so, why not let your body come back to balance? And I had someone the other day say to me, um, like, remember, Kelly, like this was in my session, I think it was, it's like your body like knows. Your body knows
Yeah.
because my mind was like running, running, running. It's like, oh, like my body knows. And I am in reminding of myself, even outside of healer support and therapies and things, is like creating that love relationship with the body. And I'd love to hear any final words around, just ways that people can keep men and women connecting with themselves, like in the fertility space, especially.
You're right. I love that your body does know. Your body does know. It's just we're living too much in our minds right now, and not because it's a bad thing. It's just we're just bombarded, right? And as much as we can try to limit the EMFs and all of this, it's just everywhere. So we have to be okay with living in that world because there's so much that we can do to really slow down and how it affects us. And one of the concepts that we want to keep in mind is we are living in our heads, but we have to start following our heart and trusting our gut. And those narratives, or that those taglines have stayed because there's a reason. When we just kind of slow it down and out of our heads and out of Google and out of trying to figure out the next thing to do, what is your heart trying to tell you? Because your heart has cells, and cellular memory is a thing. We cannot separate the mind from the heart or from the womb. In Chinese medicine, we have a concept called the heart and womb connection. And there's literally a vessel that pumps blood to the womb and vice versa. And if your heart is deficient, your soul is deficient. You're not following your desires, or you're leading with your head, and the body's doing its own thing. So let's get back to what can we do to physically unblock that heart and womb connection, right? And yeah, those are your everyday reconnections, your everyday, like, take 5 minutes to sit there and say, what do I really want? What can I do? I need somebody, even ask, who else can help me? That person will walk into your life. Maybe you'll see a commercial on, social media. Your friend just says, I just came back from this lady, you got to meet her. Things, the right person will pop up. But when you start to not lead from the head, which I understand, we're heady, it's okay, but just open the heart a little bit and see if you follow your heart and reconnect a little bit, just a tiny, tiny bit, just even a minute a day. What does my heart want today? What does my soul want today? Um, it could be a matcha latte. It could be, a massage. And those openings are a really great way to start that connection. And the other things will follow. The other things will follow. Start simple and just be open to something completely different. And it's time to mother yourself. You are trying to become a mother, but maybe you need some nourishment. Maybe that heart needs some nourishment. We all come in with wounds of our own. They don't have to be extreme. They could be micro wounds. Tap into those. And then the physical stuff will start to ease out, either with acupuncture, with herbs, with testing, or wherever this needs to go. That will come in order when you start to follow your heart, open it up to who else can possibly help me, or do I need help? Am I connected? These are questions we don't ask ourselves. I didn't, and I was in the medical industry for a long time. So I understand it's not easy to tell somebody, just relax, or stress. That's really annoying. Stress is a good thing, okay? It keeps us alive sometimes. But it's just about maybe just listening to what your heart needs and sitting for a minute and seeing, is your womb tight? Is it safe? Is it receptive to baby right now? It could be as easy as that. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. And thank you for sharing that. And right now we're coming to the end. So just kind of sharing ways that people can connect with your work and your website or contact or Instagram or whatever it is that you share.
Sure, absolutely. Well, if you're interested in my work, or, you know, connecting in my one of my programs, I'm available for a breakthrough session. So you can go to my website at yonisync.com and book a free call with me, and then we'll see what it is that you're tuning into, and then if we can be a good fit for that. And there's also a lot of free resources on my website. You can download my herbal super herb fertility herbs that I love, to start off with. And that's a free download that you can have. And there's also a masterclass that I do, talks a little bit more about the physical shifts that we can make, as well as, this other more metaphysical and cellular shifts that we can make. And so everything's on my site, and you follow me on yoni.co spirit.sync at Instagram. And I'm available for all questions and, nice comments and connecting on that level.
Well, this was so amazing. Thank you for coming and being here.
Oh, absolutely. It was a pleasure. I love this space that you create for this kind of conversation.
I know, I feel like we can keep talking about this for a long time. There's so many beautiful, gorgeous topics to go into, and I thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I want to thank you for joining episode 175, September 29th, 2023, Healing and Replenishing Your Womb, Creating with Nature for Fertility Wellness. Thank you for joining Spirit Baby Radio with your host, me, Kelly. And please join my newsletter for Spirit Baby 101 video on tips and practices. Order my book, It's a Journal, Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby Journal, and Cards for Your Healing Journey, Spirit Baby Oracle Cards, Soul Answers from Spirit Baby. To learn more about my services and supporting people all around the world in private one-on-one sessions, online classes, programs, and private VIP retreats, you can reach me at kellyanmeehan.com or spiritbabymedium.com, as well as on Instagram at spiritbabymedium, and email is spiritbabymedium@gmail.com. Remember to always listen to your heart communication, and your spirit child says hello. Thank you for joining.